Hi, I'm Kristen, and this is Scrap Fabric Love. And today I'm going to give a little update about my HandiQuilter Moxie. So that's the long arm behind me that I bought, I think, a little over 2.5 years ago, but my memory's a bit sketchy. I know it was over 2, it might be getting closer to 3 years ago. Anyway, I did a video back then about sort of why I bought it and, you know, how I got on with it in the first month or so, but I get questions often enough about, do you still like it? Can you do an update review? And I got one question like that from a subscriber last week, and they detailed all the things they wanted to know. So I thought, why not just go through and answer those questions? If you're new here, this is me. I make scrap quilts and I take you guys along for my quilting experiments. So I have other videos on the channel about using my Moxie, including the first sort of test quilt I made with lots of different designs. One that I pieced entirely on a long arm, which was lots of fun. My first ever collage quilt with lots of teeny weeny bits. And then my bonkers applique quilt that became my first quilt show entry. So these questions were from V. Coleman, you know who you are, and I'll put the little questions up on the screen. But basically the first one was about what was the process of me deciding to get the Moxie, what other long arms did I consider before I bought this one. And so the short answer to that is I didn't really consider any other long arms. So before I got the idea, sorry, there's pigeons on my roof. They make this noise. You can probably hear them. I can't stop them. The short answer is I didn't really consider any other long arms before I bought this one, because the other long arms, as far as I was concerned, were like way out of my price range. So I know I sound North American. I'm originally from Canada, but I live in the UK, so I live in Scotland. So when I ever did kind of go, I wonder how much that is when you see someone talking about a long arm, I would have previously seen prices between like £7,500, £12,000 up, like a lot of money, right? Like a lot. So I was like, well, that's not really something I'm ever going to be able to do. I just thought it was for professionals who charge people to quilt quilts for them and stuff like that. Although I was interested, I wasn't really researching long arms. But then I heard about this Moxie, which I'm pretty sure at the time I bought it was relatively new. I don't know how new, but anyway, it was new-ish as this entry-level long arm. And they had a package on at, as far as I know, the only long arm dealer in the UK, Pinhole Quilting, which is the one I bought this from. And it was around about the £5,000 mark, I think. So that was considerably cheaper than any I had seen before. The throat space was bigger than any of the kind of domestic sewing machines I'd seen on the market that I could afford. So even like the one, is it the Janome, I want to say Continental 7 something, you'll know what I mean. There's a really big fancy Janome machine that has a big throat space, but I think it cost more than than the long arm kind of thing. And the whole reason that I was considering a long arm at all was that whole problem of rolling a quilt up in the throat space and trying to do what I wanted to do, whether it was free motion quilting or straight line quilting or whatever. It was like the shoulder strain and the back strain and all of that. And if you've seen some of my other videos, I did sort of develop a whole bunch of quilt as you go solutions to that for a while, and I still use some of them, and I'll explain why I still use them later, because it kind of answers a different question that this person had. Anyway, I'm such a rambler. This is what happens on this channel. But anyway, what else did I consider? But I did consider, so other than like, is there a bigger domestic machine that could solve my issue? The other thing I considered was like those frames. I think there's Grace Company frames. There might be I think there's another UK brand I looked at. Anyway, it's like a frame similar to what the long arm's on, but you would put like a domestic machine on it. And so I was seeing people with these combinations of these frames, and often like a Juki machine with like a largish throat space, but not as large as even the Moxie. And then there was tabletop frames that I looked into. Like I went down like an internet rabbit hole of that whole kind of combo of stuff. And I wasn't confident that one that would do exactly what I wanted. It would probably solve the shoulder thing, but it didn't, you know, there wasn't as much throat space. So I felt like I might be kind of limited, and it was still going to be an expensive sort of package to buy if I did that, even when I was looking for frames secondhand. And I think in the end, the best sort of complementary version of that setup versus the Moxie would only have been like £1,000 or £1,500 less or something, which is a lot of money, but it's not like it was half the price or something. And so then you would maybe be okay with giving up some of the functionality, right? No, I still didn't need the long arm. Like if you saw my original Moxie video, it was absolutely kind of like, let's just try this. I must have been flush at the time. Thought, I don't know, I wouldn't be buying it now. But anyway, at the time, it seemed like an okay investment to make just to give it a go and try it. So yeah, so there weren't any other long arms in the running. I don't actually know if how many other entry-level long arms there are right now. I'm literally not looking because I don't want to, tempt myself to upgrade or change because I'm perfectly happy with the one I have. I know there's an XL version of this, which I presume has a slightly larger throat space than what I've got, but I don't want to know about it because I know what I'm like. So that's my answer to question 1. Okay, so I've got the questions here on the phone. So the next one was, did you manage to trial it at a showroom or quilting show before you bought it? No. So the shop that sells these here in the UK is in England. I'm in Scotland. It's a long way away. I'm pretty sure from my memory, so I think it is 2.5 years because I'm pretty sure I bought it right after a quilt show that I didn't go to that they were having in August. I'm going to say 2022 probably. And I saw that they had like a showroom deal. So what I did was message them and say, look, I'm not coming to the show, but could I still get the deal? And they said, yeah. So I bought it from them with show prices without going to the show and without trying it. I know that's not the thing you're supposed to do, but that's what I did. What's the next question? Which extras, accessories did you go for? So the extras that I got it came, I think, with an 8-foot frame, and I bought the 10-foot frame, which just meant I could make slightly bigger quilts. And I had the space for it here, so that made sense for me. So I just got the biggest frame I could get. The other extras I bought was I think there was like the show package. I think there was one about a ruler foot and the ruler base, the base that kind of, I'll take a picture, but it's kind of the thing that you kind of slot on so that you can use rulers, and it gives you a little bit more of a flatter space. I bought that. And I don't think I bought any other extras at the time. The next question was, did I consider computerized robotic add-ons? So for the Moxie, that's the Pro Stitcher, and I didn't consider it. So one, it was really expensive. I'm pretty sure it would have made the whole thing. I think it was $5,000 too. Don't quote me because one, it was like 3 years ago, and 2, I just don't remember, but I know it was a lot, and I felt like it would be almost double the price, and it just wasn't that appealing to me. It's weird because like I'll use program stitches on my domestic machine, but when I'm quilting, I kind of want it to just be myself, and to have learned by practicing and stuff like that. I don't know why I have that idea in my head. There's nothing wrong with using computerized quilting designs. They look good, but it just wasn't something that really appealed to me, especially not for the price. The only thing now, if it were way cheaper, I think you can like automatically turn on the channel locks, which is like what you do so I've got these. It came with, maybe I bought these as extra. So it came with this, which you put around the wheel to stop it moving either towards you or left to right, depending on what you're trying to do. So you can do straight lines easier, which was a big draw for me. For the long arm, I really wanted to do nice straight lines. Anyway, and so I did buy 2 more that were for some reason slightly bigger, but they still work. And you have to fit them over the wheels to stop it moving. And then when you want to stop doing that and do something different, you take them off. So, and that's fine, but it would be easier if you could just press a button to lock it, which I'm pretty sure is what you can do with the Pro Stitcher. So if it was like way cheaper, then I would buy it for that. But I don't want to do, right now, I don't want to do all the other stuff. Who knows, sometime in the future, I might change my mind about that. But right now, it didn't really appeal. Okay, so the next question was, having used it for a few years, what is kind of my favorite aspect of it and where does it fall short? So my favorite bit is that it doesn't like hurt my back or my shoulders. I don't mind the standing up to quilt, that's fine. I like being able to move the machine and not the quilt because obviously that's way less physically demanding. So that's the best bit, and that was kind of one of the main drivers. I also like that it's kind of easier to baste and more, it's not just as easier to baste, because I used to like baste quilts on the floor, so that's obviously not that comfortable. But it's also just more foolproof. So when I would baste quilts, even on the floor, the process of like getting it up and moving it around with the domestic machine and stuff, I would still end up with some sort of a ripple on the back of the backing fabric or whatever. But once you've kind of rolled the backing and everything on the long arm, you don't tend to get that. I use these, so red snappers, you might have heard of them. So when I first got the Moxie, I was using pins to baste on the leaders, which is the fabric bits that hold the backing and everything. But now I've got these. So there's like little red, let me just show you. So inside the fabric bits that you attach the quilt top or the backing to, there's these casings, and you can put in these. It's like a red tube thing. And then once that's in, when you want to attach something, you just snip this on like that. And it's just a bit quicker and easier. So anyway, so that's what I use. I almost never use this one though for the quilt top because I tend to float my quilt tops. So yeah, but I do use it for the backing fabric. So I think the long arm comes into its own when you want to do something super quick and simple. So like this one behind me, I'll take a picture closer up for you, has really simple wavy lines, and I would have quilted that in an evening, maybe less. I can't remember, you know, it wouldn't have taken a long time. And similarly, if I was wanting to do just straight lines in one direction, it wouldn't take a long time. And so things like that, if you just want to finish something quickly, it's really good, even freehand, right? But I have more fun with it when I'm doing something a bit different. I like to do applique on the long arm. I sometimes piece on the long arm. The thing I've got up there has been literally off and on the long arm like 5 times because I can't decide what I want to do. I know I want to put something around this central bit of patchwork, and I want to piece it on the long arm, but I keep changing my mind. So I take it off and put it back on and whatever. But anyway, but it's easy enough to do that with the snappers and whatever. So I like that. In terms of any kind of drawbacks that they were asking about, I wouldn't call it a drawback so much as just something to get used to, is that there's like different, so there's limitations of what maybe you can do physically with a domestic. So you might want to do a certain kind of design, but you're like, I just can't maneuver the quilt that way. It's too heavy or whatever. And you think it would be better on here. And a lot of things it will, but like, so you've just got so you've got the throat space, which I think is advertised as like 15 inches on this, but obviously there's the bars. And so once you take the bars into account, I think it's something more like 11 or 12. Somebody else will know this for sure, but, and your showroom person who's selling it to you will know. And the Moxie XL might be bigger, the one they're selling now. Anywho, but like the throat space it's still limited, right? So you have to kind of decide what you can do in that space, when to advance, when you have to go back. So I do a lot of rolling forward and back to do the different things I want to do, especially if I am doing something that's got applique. I like to do applique and like change thread colors. So I might, for example, if I'm doing something that's got green in several different places, I might roll it up to one spot, do the green, and then to avoid changing the threads, roll it back to the other spot and do the green. So there's just kind of things like that you have to consider. And, you know, it would be, I don't know how, I presume people can, but I don't know how you would do, for example, a crosshatch on this. Like if you wanted to go diagonally, all one way and diagonally all the other way, unless you're going to load the quilt top diagonally. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just kind of with the horizontal space that you've got, there's some things, they probably can be done, but I just wouldn't know how to do them. So there's that kind of thing to think about as a limitation. It's more kind of getting used to what are the new parameters that I'm working under. So there's lots of problems that it solves, but then there's just other things where you're like, actually maybe that's not going to work, but you know, and you just have to have a think about it. That's not really a limitation. That's just kind of what it is. So the other thing is just a me thing. Like, so I've said on this channel before, people laugh at me, but this is what it is. I am a crisis management person. I'm not an upkeep person. So although I try and sort of dust everything and I do oil it, I'm not that bad. I don't necessarily like do a full like MOT on it all the time unless something goes wrong. So I will have something where it's kind of moving funny or it seems like it's getting caught on something and I don't understand what the problem is, and I have to go down and look, and 9 times out of 10 there's a bit of thread wrapped around a wheel or something and I have to take it out, whereas someone a little bit more conscientious would have looked for all of that before they started quilting, you know what I mean? So there's that. The other thing is that the cable at the back, you need to make sure it has sort of a free-flowing path, and that so that it doesn't get caught on anything, because if sometimes in the middle, depending on where it is and where the cord is, it can kind of give you a little judder if it's caught on something. Now I've got way too much stuff under here. I don't like it. It's hard for you to see here because my sewing room's an absolute tip, but it does have a free kind of path at the back. But that's the first thing I check if something's kind of like not flowing the way I want it, is like, where's the cord? Do I need to move it over around something or whatever? So the cord or thread caught in the wheel are the kind of little things that I've noticed. The tension stuff, which is what I think I was afraid of when I started on the long arm, is actually not as scary as the tension issues I had when I first started free motion quilting on a domestic. So those were way more of a headache. This, it's kind of like you just have to get used to making big turns on the dial sort of thing. So I still have to Google every time, like, what does it mean if the bobbin thread is showing on the top, or the top thread's flat, or whatever like this. But once I've got Google to tell me, oh, that means the top tension's too too loose or too tight, you just got to really go for it. Like, try 1 or 2 turns and see what happens. And I do little tests every time I change my thread color when I'm quilting. And so I've got all these little squiggles on the side, but usually you can solve the issue there. So that bit is actually not as hard as I thought it was going to be. The other thing that I forgot to mention that I bought, and I think I just bought this on Amazon, was this. It's like a tension tester thing for the bobbin. So the idea is that you test the bobbin tension on this first, and then when you have tension problems on the long arm, then you know it's the top one that you have to change, and you don't have to kind of go fiddling with the bobbin. So that, I use that a lot. So one other limitation that's pretty specific to me is quilting with stretchy denim. So the denim itself, I know I've heard some people say that quilting on a long arm with denim is a big issue, big no-no, they can't do it. I've not found that in terms of the thickness is what they're usually talking about. That's not so much been a super issue for me, unless I've got a super thick seam, like with a lot of different denim. That sometimes can be an issue. And you get this little kind of warning thing, and then you just have to kind of bring the needle up and turn the machine off and on and start in a different spot. That's kind of my solution. But the issue I more have, that it's harder to get around than that one, is that I don't want to interface all the denim before I use it. And so then, because on a long arm you are literally stretching the fabric by, using the rollers and things like that, and trying to pull everything taut, it gets stretched more than if I was quilting it on a domestic. So I tend to do my denim quilts still on the domestic with a quilt as you go method that I've called join and flip. It's not like my method, but it's something I've adapted. I've got other videos about it if anyone's interested, but people often ask me who watch the channel regularly, they know I have a long arm. They're like, why are you doing quilt as you go when you have a long arm? And it's because of the stretchy denim, usually. So that's my kind of solution. Also, kind of, I don't mind having like one project on the long arm that I can be working on there and kind of going away from and coming back. Like when it's more of like an arty thing or something where I'm experimenting and not one where I'm doing like waves in one evening. I like to be able to just leave it and come back and then still be working on something else on the domestic. So it's kind of like I can be quilting 2 things at once, just in different ways. Anyway, so I do plan on doing more experimenting in different ways with like smaller bits of denim. I think if I just did it differently or maybe pieced it on the long arm, I could do more denim stuff on there. But in terms of like a somewhat traditionally because it's jeans, but anyway, traditionally pieced quilt with like blocks and seams that meet and things like that with the denim quilt, I found it difficult on the long arm. So if you're doing anything with a great amount of stretch, I think it's got a little bit of a limitation there. And in terms of any issues I've ever had with it, so the only time I've had to send it away to get fixed was fairly early on when I had it, and it kept getting this kind of lightning bolt error, and apparently it was some sort of known issue, and they just had to change, I don't know, some sort of software or something, and then they sent it back to me, and that was, you know, I was without it for a week or two, but it was no big deal. And they sorted it out for me. The one thing I'll say about that was that I had thrown away the box before that happened. And you need the box if you ever have to send it somewhere to get serviced or back. So I had to pay a little box charge, but that was my fault. So keep the box. It's huge. So I just thought, where am I going to keep it? But yeah, I should have kept the box. And then the last question this person had was, what would I change about it? Well, you know, obviously in an ideal world, I'd love to have even bigger throat space so that I could, you know, do all sorts without having to advance it. But I'm not willing to pay more for that. So I'm kind of okay with living with that. Similarly, I would love to be able to press a button to just channel lock and have my straight lines going in one direction or another without having to put on the little wheel things. But again, I don't want it enough to pay more for it, so it is what it is. And lastly, I would have a bigger room. But probably I would do the same thing with a bigger room and just overstuff it. So that's part of a me problem. But like, I do have the space, but I don't have the space at the back to kind of go around and check things like the cable and whatever. So if I ever do need to go around the back, which isn't very often because I don't quilt from the back, I don't do pantographs or any of that stuff. I just do freehand. But it would be useful kind of sometimes to be able to walk all the way around, and I can't because there's a wall right over there. And so I've got limited maneuverability around it, but that's just my room and the mess that I keep and whatever. So that's a me issue. I mean, all in all, I'm really happy with it. So other than sending it back for that one time, I actually haven't even sent it to be serviced. I've not had any issues with it. And because it isn't, like, maybe if the showroom was in Scotland, I might go and just get an annual service or something. But because it's in England, it's kind of a little bit of a faff if I wanted to do that. I probably still should at some point. But anyway, as long as it's still working, I just haven't bothered to arrange that. So yeah, I'm still pretty happy with it. I feel like it lets me do some more creative things. It does let me finish quilting simple quilts much quicker. And when I want to take the time with it and do something a bit fancier, I can. It's not, you know, it's not professional looking because I'm not a professional quilter, but I think it looks good enough for me and I have fun with it and I enjoy it. So yeah, I'm still happy with my purchase, but I can't give you kind of any this is why it's better than a different one, unfortunately. So sorry to the person who commented. I think you were looking for a kind of apples and apples, whereas I don't have that. So anyway, but good luck with your purchase if anybody's considering a long arm, and feel free to ask me any other questions in the comments. I'll do my best to answer if I know the answer. So I hope that's helped in some way. If you're new to the channel, I mostly make scrap quilts, don't follow a lot of quilting rules, buy expensive things without thinking about it. And yeah, and I run an online quilt community called SCRAB Club, which is beginner friendly, no judgment. And we meet once a month on Zoom just to share our projects and to have fun together. So yeah, if any of that sounds interesting and you haven't subscribed, I hope you'll consider it. And thanks so much for spending time with me. Bye.